Seabird, chapter 19, 20, and 21. The sea is an enemy, chapter 19. Remember, the boatswain was leaving and he grabbed Seabird. Before he left and tossed her over the back. For Nate, these were nightmarish seconds. He couldn't cry out even when Seabird soared over him. It seemed that the magic of flight had freed her from earth. Her spirit reached for the sky, yet her body longed for the sea. Ivory, amber, whalebone, slate, and coral urged her down. Beyond the stern, she dived into the bay. Nate kicked off his shoes by the rail and went after her. He opened his eyes underwater and saw whiteness twisting, turning, growing smaller. He swam straight down with all his might, but he could not overtake the sinking Seabird. Now the whole deck knew. That dirty scum of a bosun, he's got away. Forget him, bawled the mate. Get the lad up. They hauled the sobbing boy aboard. He slumped on a hatch. We're plumb sorry, said the cook. Seabird was this ship's soul. We can't let you dive again, said the mate. Even at this low tide, bottom is 15 fathoms. No man can live at 90 feet. Nate hid for them. Let him be, said the cook. Let him cry. Men wandered miserably to the side, gazing at San Francisco. Look, said someone, cried. Nate stood on the rail, stripped to his skin, lifting a short chain in his hand, and he leaped. The chain took him downward now without swimming. Down through green water, a darker green and cold. Had he lost track of Seabird about here? He let out air in a bubbly stream. His ears and lungs hurt. Down, down, and more bubbles. His head pounded. Down, his last air bubbles away. How good it would feel to let the chain go and to breathe again. Terror clutched him. Down there, cold depths crushing. But down there, a dim gray thing. If it only... He's coming to now, Captain, the cook was saying. But he swallowed the whole bay. We sounded for bottom, and you know, what? 15 fathoms lies under our bow, but only 7 astern. Nate reached the reef, 42 down. Most grown men wouldn't dare to go that deep, but Nate, he brought up Seabird. But not without some consequences. Chapter 20. The sea is a friend. The Seabird returned to Nate and Ezra. With them, she sailed through the Golden Gate, westbound for the Orient. Day by day, Nate finished his nagging tasks swiftly and well, so that he could have more free time with Seabird. Then he would take her aloft to the masthead, where the two of them had a world of sky to themselves. Below, the sun chased rope shadows over the bulging sails. Far down, the lee rail hissed in foam. Taut rigging sang them in high, wild, joyous songs, and Nate was glad to be alive, riding blue hills of the vast Pacific on flowing wind. Aye, the sea is vast and deep, said Ezra one day, in more ways than one. Back home we think the earth is made of dry land, that the ocean is just wrinkled old blue blanket pinned to the beach. 'Tis the other way around. The earth is a flooded ball, mostly of water, and we, on this sliver of wood adrift for weeks on the deep, have time to think. Nate, I'll confess that when we left home, your actions had me worried, but no more. The sea has taught you well. The Clipper anchored at the Sandwich Islands, the native name for Hawaii. Boys and girls swam over to the ship with their parents, wet bodies shining like copper. When Ezra started ashore in his boat, he let Nate swim back with the youngsters. What? The Yankee boy could do their tricks in the water? That he was one of them? From then on, Nate Brown went native. They played games in groves of feathery palms and slid over waterfalls into deep flower-lined pools. They dived through worlds of waving plants, stiff coral fans, and bright-colored fishes. They raced with surfboards on the crests of mile-long waves. They ate delicious feasts, meats, seafood, roots, and fruits baked in hot rock trenches under steaming seaweed. And in the warm evenings, scented with ginger blossom, Nate sprawled on mats in palm-thatched houses and told stories of Seabird, of his father, and far-off New England. It was all Ezra could do to get Nate back to the ship, headed for China. Remember, he said, Seabird and I had to leave such islands too when we were young. But you'll return. Chapter 21. Magic can be spun from simple things. More weeks swam by, curling water, hills of water, more weeks of singing, ringing, and salty spray. When Nate and Seabird really sailing to the Orient, or were they hung in a box of billowing cloth while the Orient slid towards them over the sea. China came first. Nate awoke and knew that China was there. Sun brushed a line of golden hilltops across a misty scroll. Then the roar of a gong tore the mist, and there was China. And what was China to this boy? It was narrow streets with the serpents turning, strings of shark fins, kites across the sky, teasing smells, tidbits of glowing coals, bales of silk, drums, bells, and jewelry, firecrackers popping on the poles to frighten devils, packets of tea and cats, and furry puppies and glossy crickets kept for their cheerful songs. China was white doves wheeling past the red gates of temples, and incense climbing the shadows to golden dragons. It was two thin men lugging one fat man in the sedan chair and tottering loads moving past on human feet. China toiled on barren hills. China slaved on their plains. China swirled on the waters and sampans and huge junks. But China, big as it was, did not hold all the Orient. The boy saw Siam and Burma, Ceylon, India, and the spice-scented islands. Nate saw men wager on fighting elephants and on fish in a bowl. Whole empires, said Ezra, have fought like elephants or fish, losing or winning for a time. Then he and Nate walked in a jungle over ruined cities. These cities won great battles, said Ezra, and then destroyed themselves. Nate heard wild cocks crowing, black leopards came to drink at a village pool, pilgrims left food for stone gods asleep in a cave, cat-sized bats hung in trees like heavy fruit, a deer the size of a rabbit hid under a leaf, a man-eating tiger coughed in a bamboo thicket. Seabird was almost stolen by jungle monkeys. She never hinted that in the Orient such things had happened to her before. Even the Clipper seemed new again. In moonlight, her towering sails were ivory pagodas jeweled with stars. Chapter 19, 20, and 21.